Gaetz, whatever time you may consume.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I cannot say how proud I am to be a Floridian taking the floor this evening to talk about the great value that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is bringing to the folks in the Sunshine State. I'm particularly proud that Florida was prepared for this uplift in the economy as a consequence of the work of the Congress, because since Governor Scott took control of the governor's mansion, our state has reduced over 50,000 regulations. We've cut taxes over 50 times. Folks like my colleague, Mr. Rutherford from Florida, served in our law enforcement community and led to safer streets and safer communities so that we could grow and prosper in a way that was conducive to a family-friendly life. But for so long, while we had been cutting taxes and fighting for a more competitive economic ecosystem, the federal government had thrown a wet blanket over the economy. With a corporate tax rate that was one of the highest in the world, Florida companies weren't able to leverage the great talents that were coming out of our state to go and compete because the rules were stacked against us as a consequence of bad policies in Washington. I am so proud that during the 115th Congress, we were able to pass the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act so that states like Florida could realize the great benefit of conservative leadership. And in my district, in North Florida, where we've got a number of hard-working folks, particularly in the manufacturing center, there is a new sense of economic optimism and prosperity that is sweeping across our state and my region. The National Association of Manufacturers 2018 first quarter outlook says that 93.5% of manufacturers now have a positive outlook regarding the growth of their businesses. Entirely consistent with the feedback I've gotten from manufacturers such as Ascend Materials and American Elite Injection Molding, where we're competing with the best around the world, and we're winning and we're growing. Manufacturers in my district have said that one consequence of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is that they're able to reinvest in their facilities, buy new cutting-edge equipment, grow and expand their physical plant, and this creates jobs and better competition. Absolutely outstanding. Energy cost is something that impacts our small businesses and families alike. And as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, Gulf Power, the independently owned utility in my district, is cutting rates so that ratepayers will see savings over $100 million. That's $100 million plowed right back into the economy in my district, right back at the kitchen table at the end of the month. And certainly, it's of great value that we've been able to see that result for our families and for our businesses. Publix is another great business in our state. They're increasing pay for employees, allowing employees to be able to buy into employee stock option programs at greater frequency. Mr. Speaker, whether it's the largest businesses in our state or the smallest, whether it's families that have been prosperous or families that are looking to climb that next peg on the economic ladder, I can say with great sincerity that the feedback as a consequence of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act has been entirely positive. Folks are more optimistic, and ultimately that will ensure that the state of Florida is able to participate in a more competitive and productive economic environment going forward. I thank the gentleman from Florida, my colleague Mr. Rutherford, and I yield back.